Thanks everyone for being here. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm Kathleen Sgamma with Western Energy Alliance. We represent oil and natural gas producers in Utah and across the West. We kind of represent the Dakotas and Nebraska on west to the coast, leaving off California purposefully. So the last time I spoke here, I think there were about 60 rigs running in the basin. And even though we're at about an order of magnitude fewer than that, I am optimistic about the future in the basin. For one thing, you have some very dedicated companies that continue to operate here. For example, Newfield, Crescent Point, Axia, and EP Energy, and I think you'll hear from them today. But there are some fundamentals of the basin that remain tricky, of course, and we've all recognized that. First and foremost, the Uinta Basin must compete with other areas of the country that have a better resource base at these current economic conditions or the market conditions, as well as they're not as constrained by transportation, and particularly the Permian Basin in New Mexico and Texas and the Bakken up in North Dakota. But the basin, of course, suffers from another competitive disadvantage, and that is the large amount of public lands that we have here in the basin. But the fact that the Trump administration is working so hard to reduce many of the regulatory obstacles and provide, this energy dominance agenda makes me very optimistic about the future. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. And that's really what Western Energy Alliance focuses on, is trying to improve that climate when it comes to federal policy issues on public lands and air quality that affect your production here in the basin. So we're seeing policies that are indeed putting the basin on a better track from the regulatory perspective. Whereas the prior administration really tried to use those federal processes to create obstacles and stop new development, we're seeing the Trump administration is clearing away some of that regulatory underbrush and moving forward with this energy dominance agenda and policies that will improve that regulatory environment here in the basin. So that makes me very optimistic, and we'll be talking about some of those more in depth on the panel later this afternoon. But I'd like to touch on a few of them here today, and something that Western Energy Alliance has been working on is first stopping federal regulation of fracking. We were very successful in stopping the BLM fracking rule. We are working on changing the waste prevention rule, otherwise known as the venting and flaring rule, that we've put a stay on that. We will be continuing to work in courts to make sure that the new rule that will not regulate air quality, but will focus on BLM's authority, we're going to be in court to make sure that gets through all the way. And so we're very optimistic in that respect as well. Sage grouse is another area that the prior administration tried to constrain development by using sage grouse and plans that were very cumbersome for Utah. And we have the Trump administration rewriting those sage grouse plans so that they will better conform to Utah's plan. And Utah's plan has been very effective for conserving the sage grouse while also letting economic activity move forward. So we're glad to see some of those policies being cleared away. But I'd like to talk about one very positive step that we're seeing, which is reducing the timelines for environmental analysis. We've documented at Western Energy Alliance NEPA documents held up in Utah and Wyoming for 8 to 10 years. And that meant that projects that were proposed couldn't go forward. And we saw recently with the announcement that EOG made of pulling back on their environmental analysis. Unfortunately, the government sat on that document for 9 years, didn't move it forward, to the point where EOG had to pull back and say, wait a second, what we proposed 9 years ago is, a generation ago in technology. We wouldn't develop the basin in that way today, but we have this cumbersome environmental document that doesn't let us move forward with today's technology. And as a result of the government sitting on that project, it took away about $1 billion in state revenue over the course of that project. And we saw that in other companies' proposed projects during the Obama administration. Well, the Trump administration wants to get those NEPA timelines, that environmental analysis, down to about a year. And so we'll see if they can meet that. So instead of taking 8 years in a project, suddenly, market conditions change, technology changes, and that project will no longer go forward. We want to see if the Trump administration can indeed deliver on that, deliver on the environmental analysis done in about a year's time so that projects can move forward in the basin. So we're hoping to see that around the April timeline, some projects approved here. So we're very positive about that work that the administration is trying to do. We still see that work needs to be done to make sure those policies get implemented at the field office level here in Vernal and at other field offices across the West. And we're also working with Congress. Chairman Bishop, who spoke earlier today, has some onshore bills in Congress that if we could get passed in the lame duck session, which happens after the election, if we could get some of those onshore bills passed, then we would have the possibility that no matter who's the next president, whether it's Elizabeth Warren or whomever, Bernie Sanders, that some of these policies will survive this administration. And so we're working with Congress to get some of those passed as well. So we are optimistic about the direction of federal policy in the basin. We're optimistic that we can work through the ozone non-attainment issues and continue to move forward with new production or new development in the basin, and that the future looks brighter, because the federal government should not be stopping job and economic activity in this area of the country or other rural areas across the West. So that's what Western Energy Alliance is working on. Appreciate conversation afterwards. I'm not sure if we're taking questions now, but really looking forward to hearing the other industry speakers today to see what their plans are. So thank you very much for coming today, and appreciate the opportunity to speak.